On this week's episode of Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast, Tesla's new refreshed Model Y, aka Project Juniper, has been announced for North America. I've got all the details, including pricing and options. Plus, the new Model 3 takes home a trophy. Unplugged Performance shows some Los Angeles area law enforcement officers how good of a patrol car the Model Y can be, and more. What's happening, friends? I'm Ryan McCaffrey, joining you as I do every single week here on Ride the Lightning, the Tesla unofficial podcast. It's episode 495, publishing on January 26th, 2025. A reminder that next week is Tesla's Q4 earnings call. So as always, I will have highlight clips from the Tesla executive team, as well as a recap and analysis. So stay tuned for that, coming up on episode 496 next week. A quick appetizer, and then we're going to dive right into our main course this week. So congratulations to Tesla, and specifically the Model 3 team, as the 3 Fresh, as we've been calling it here, was named Edmunds' Best Electric Car of 2025. Now, Edmunds, of course, the consumer-focused car testing organization, had this to say about Tesla's redesigned midsize sedan. Quote, "The 2024 Tesla Model 3 offers an enticing combination of performance, comfort, and range, and its price continues to undercut the competition. The updated Model 3 also impresses with its improved ride comfort and added amenities such as ventilated front seats. It's a great choice for a well-rounded EV," end quote. Well, as someone who is now lucky enough to be driving one of the new ones, I have been driving my new Model 3 Performance all week. I couldn't agree more with Edmunds, and I will talk more about my first week hands-on impressions living with my new Model 3 Performance towards the end of the podcast. But for now, we've got to get right to the big story this week because it is a big one. The Model Y has been confirmed for North America. We've been waiting, and I thought that wait was going to be pretty short, and it turns out it is, thankfully. Tesla has confirmed the Juniper refresh for our shores, as well as Europe, by the way. I don't want that to get lost in the mix here. So worldwide, the Model Y is launching. Let's dig into the details, because I know a number of you are probably interested in buying this, or at least considering it and pricing it out and seeing what your options are. So, for now, only the Launch Series is available, so they are doing Launch Series here, just as they are doing in China. And the Launch Series is described by Tesla on the USA Tesla website as, quote, "a limited edition Model Y with bespoke features to celebrate the start of production," end quote. The design studio, if you're curious, and this is obviously a very key bit of information that you want to know, deliveries begin in March, which certainly suggests that this is going to be a pretty simultaneous global rollout, that all the factories around the world are going to be delivering this thing right about the same time. Now, admittedly, we don't know what specifically March means in terms of, is it the beginning, middle, or end of the month? So stay tuned on that as people put in their orders and start to get delivery estimates, delivery windows. We'll learn a bit more on when in March that's going to be. Now, we probably won't get that for another month or so, but we will get that information sooner rather than later. But to get further into this, it turns out that the Launch Series comes with a bit more than we thought after we got the initial Launch Series info from Giga Shanghai. So here in the US, it's $60,000, $59,995, $60,000, and it is a fully loaded dual motor all-wheel drive. There is no single motor rear wheel drive, or excuse me, long range rear wheel. I just just mix that up nice and hilariously. There is no long-range rear-wheel drive option for the launch series. They are all going to be dual-motor, all-wheel drives. You get acceleration boost, you get FSD, your choice of black or white interior. In other words, there's no upcharge if you do want to go with the white interior. Any paint color, sort of, more on that in a minute. The tow hitch, if you want it. Again, no charge because it's an all-inclusive price. And your choice of the 19-inch wheels or the 20-inch wheels. For comparison, again, and that's $60,000. For comparison, a fully loaded old Model Y dual motor all-wheel drive with matching options, let's just say, and by the way, you can still order the old Model Y right now, because just the only new Model Y is the launch series. So the existing Model Y, the classic one, is still available. So it's very easy to just compare it. And let's do it. A fully loaded or similarly equipped, which is fully loaded, old Model Y, dual motor, all-wheel drive, and let's match the options. So let's say Quicksilver paint, the most expensive paint option, white interior along with ultra red, white interior, which is normally an upcharge, the tow hitch, also normally an upcharge, the 20-inch wheels, same thing, FSD and acceleration boost, which is $2,000. We can't forget that. You put all that into one of the old Model Ys, and that's a $64,000 configuration. So it's not like Tesla is taking you for a ride here. It's actually kind of a good deal, provided you want all that stuff. Now, you might not want to go with white interior. You might not want to go with Quicksilver paint or ultra red. You might not want to go with the 20-inch wheels. And that's all fine, but you're still going to come out basically even. Tesla is not charging, they're not really taking any profit here, as it were. They are just bundling everything to maximize their average sale price on the first builds of these new Model Ys, while production on it is still ramping. Now, we learned more about the launch series than we did with the initial Giga Shanghai launch, so I have those details for you now. You get, on the launch series, badging on the rear liftgate, which we knew about, the door sill plate that says launch series, again, we knew that, and then it says launch series on the base of the phone charger in the center console. That's the one badge I would say I personally, just my opinion, I don't care for that one on the pick. It's like, I don't want that to say anything. It's sort of a weird place to have a badge, but that's just me. You also get, now this was new to me. If this was in the Tesla China announcement of the new Model Y, I missed it. You get a special puddle light of the launch series badge icon, which I described that to you a couple weeks ago. I thought it's a pretty cool logo, and it's a neat looking puddle light too. So I think that's pretty neat. Something else that I didn't see in the Tesla China announcement of this vehicle is premium textile trim on the floor mats. So basically, the black floor mats, regardless of whether you choose black interior or white interior, the floor mats have white stitching around the edges, which it's very subtle. Yes, I'm a big fan of subtle and minimalist, but it's a nice little glow up, if you ask me. And then here's a fun one that I didn't know about until now either. You also get a vegan suede material on your center console trim, but apparently only on the black interior, which honestly, I wish it should be on the white too. If it's a special launch series only thing, let's put that on the white interior as well. I wonder why Tesla made that particular choice. But so yes, basically when they say vegan suede, if you look at the pictures, it appears to be basically the Alcantara-like material that they use on black interior door panels for the Model Y now, or the new Model 3, or the black Alcantara is also the headliner for S and X also. So it's that kind of like very, very plush to the touch, very premium feeling material, and that's your dashboard trim piece in the black interior Launch Series Model Y. No mention of at least I couldn't find any mention of the 2-year extended warranty that the Launch Series does get in China. So I didn't see, if it's there on the US version, I could not find it. So if it turns up, then I will mention it on next week's podcast or whenever we learn that. But for the time being, it does not appear that you get the 2-year extended warranty included with your car. What else can we talk about with the new Model Y here in North America? Well, as expected, no performance version yet, but as I mentioned earlier, also no long-range rear-wheel drive for the Launch Series either. It is just the one trim, long-range all-wheel drive. That's it. Although, as I mentioned, you do get your choice of the maximum range 19-inch black Aero-like wheels, which we now know the English name of, the US name of them. They are now called the Crossflow wheels, which is a pretty cool name. And if you look at them, like, okay, yeah, I see that. Crossflow, good name. And I dig them, as I talked about in the initial Model Y unveiling from Tesla China. I do think they're very nice looking. And then the silver 20-inch wheels are called the Helix 2.0, which would seem to suggest that they're a Model Y sequel to the Model X's old Helix wheels from when the X first launched, which I didn't care for those wheels personally, and I don't think anybody else really did either, because I have very, very, very rarely seen those Helix wheels on a Model X out on the road. And what just makes this even weirder is these wheels, as I said a couple weeks ago, they look pretty much exactly like the old Model 3's sport wheels. So they're a Model Y wheel that's got the same name, a sequel name, 2.0, Helix 2.0. They're named after a Model X wheel, but they're on a Model Y, and they look like an old Model 3 wheel. So it's a little confusing, but I think they are fairly nice, and I'll be eager to see them on a real Model Y out in the wild. Range, you're probably wondering what the EPA rated range is, since that's the standard that we go by here, and that's the apples to apples comparison. Well, I have good news. The range is 320 miles on the 19-inch Crossflow wheels. By comparison, the outgoing Model Y on its 19-inch Dark Gemini wheels is 311 miles. So a very, very small, what is that? That's I believe that's 3% roughly. It's about a 3% difference, but it's an improvement at least. It is 3% in the right direction. And then for the 20-inch Helix 2.0 wheels, which I'm never going to get used to saying that, it's 303 miles of range. So you're just edging over the 300-mile mark if you go with the 20s on the long-range all-wheel drive. But by comparison, on the outgoing Model Y and its 20-inch induction wheels, that one's rated 280 miles. Again, remember that the EPA revised their testing procedure, basically, which has resulted in lower numbers all around, but more real-world accurate numbers. So a pretty significant 23-mile difference there on the 20-inch wheels, which suggests that the Helix 2.0s are reasonably more efficient than the 20-inch induction wheels. So if you want to move up to the 20s on the new Model Y, it won't cost you anything monetarily, again, on the Launch Series, since it's a $60,000 all-in-one price, but it will cost you a little decent bit of range, like an actual noticeable amount of range there. So bear that in mind if you are ordering the new Y, even if you're ordering it down the road, regardless of whether you're ordering a launch series or waiting for the general production version. Now, here's some disappointing news. Remember a few minutes ago when I was talking about paint colors and how the $60,000 price was all-inclusive of any paint color you want? Well, there is a little bit of an asterisk on that. The launch series here in the US, well, here in North America, will only be offered in 4 colors: Stealth Gray, Pearl White Multicoat, Ultra Red, and Quicksilver. None of them carry an additional cost, so if you're a person that's never liked to spend extra money on paint color, but maybe you're seeing the deal here, the relative deal, if you choose all those if you were going to choose all those options anyway, and you're thinking, all right, I'm going to get the launch series, well, now's your chance to grab one of the pricier paint options like Ultra Red or Quicksilver, which are normally $2,000 each. So the bad news is that there are 2 colors missing. One of them is, yes, the new Glacier Blue, so that's not yet available here in North America, but the other missing color is Solid Black, which does mirror China. Remember how I talked about that a couple weeks ago? There's no black paint option available there either, which is a little strange. I don't quite understand that. I mean, as far as Glacier Blue goes, I would presume that Tesla's still getting Glacier Blue dialed in at I guess both the Fremont factory, but even Tesla Giga Texas as well, but particularly Fremont, which paints 4 different Teslas, versus Giga Shanghai, which is currently doing Glacier Blue paint runs, where they only paint 2 models, the 3 and the Y. Now, personally, not that my completely subjective opinion matters here, if I were ordering a launch series Juniper, here in the US, obviously, it's where I live, and Glacier Blue's not available to me, I'm probably going Quicksilver with a white interior. That's probably how I would configure mine, but I am so lucky that I just got a brand new Tesla that I am over the moon with right now. So, now that you know what your options are. Oh, and by the way, I did mention this, but I'll just call it out again. The tow hitch, it is available on the launch series. Again, already baked into the price. So if that's something where you've thought, I might use that, but I don't really want to pay $1,000 for it, here's your chance. If you're ordering a launch series, you can just check the box and you will get it without having to pay any additional money on top of that $60K. Some bad news, maybe, or at least notable news, and it's probably going to be a disappointment for some folks. There is no 7-seat option on the new Model Y yet, at least here on the launch series. It's a 5-seater only for now. And then one more thing I wanted to call out, and yes, this is probably this will cause some people to breathe a sigh of relief. It does have the turn signal stalk, as it does in China. I know some people were like, well, it may be required for regulatory reasons there, and maybe they're going to get rid of it in the US. Nope. It's here. It's on every new Model Y worldwide. So it does have the turn signal stalk, and it absolutely 100% does have the front bumper camera with the camera washer like the Cybertruck has. Now, you can't see the turn signal stalk in the little promotional video that Tesla put up on their social media accounts here in North America, but you can see the buttons on the steering wheel in that video, and they're not turn signal buttons. They're headlight and windshield washer buttons. So it's just obscured by the camera angle, maybe on purpose, because my suspicion is that either Elon and or possibly Franz weren't thrilled about adding something back in because they're both such minimalists with design, which, again, most of the time, I'm totally on board with it. I completely agree with the decision to keep the stalk on the Model Y, though, as I talked about a couple weeks ago. But I wonder if for the promotional video, either Elon or Franz just said to the content team that made that video, if they said, well, just don't show the stalk. We don't want that. We don't want that seen in the video. But if you go If you go on to Instagram and you go over to the Tesla Motors, their account, they have some promotional photos up, and you can clearly see the edge, the tip of the turn signal stalk peeking out next from behind the steering wheel in one of the pictures. And you can also very clearly see the lack of directional indicator buttons on the steering wheel, and instead see that it's a headlight icon and a windshield washer icon. And that is everything I've got on the new Model Y. So it is official. The worldwide launch is happening in 2 months or less. These cars will be on the road around the world. I kind of figured that Tesla was going to have to do this as simultaneously around the world as they possibly could, and not have a repeat of the Model 3 situation where there was a long delay between the rest of the world getting it and North America getting it. And I'm thrilled that it's going to be pretty much a simultaneous global launch. If you are planning to order the new Model Y in the launch series and you've never owned a Tesla before, make sure to use somebody's referral link when you order the vehicle, because that will give you $500 off of that launch series new Model Y. If you'd like to order using my referral link, it is ts.la/Ryan73014. Just type that into any web browser on a desktop or mobile device, and you can just click on Model Y, choose Launch Series, configure which options you want, and you will see on the Design Studio page the $500 referral discount baked in. Just make sure that you use somebody's referral link to order. Again, if you don't already own a Tesla. If you already do, you'll just get it as a loyalty discount because you're referring yourself. But for first-time Tesla buyers, get that $500 off with a referral link. Also, for those of you kindly supporting the podcast on Patreon, every week I put up a new lightning round mini episode. They range from 10 to 20 minutes, sometimes a little longer. I think this week's was 13, 15 minutes, something like that. This week's was about my 6 predictions for next week's Q4 earnings call. And in fact, I'll just say, I'll say this humbly, but with some pride, I guess. Pride, but not ego, is one of the predictions that I made on that lightning round has already come true. So if you are already supporting me on Patreon at that $10 per month level or higher, you can check that out anytime you like, and as well as the other 128 episodes of the lightning rounds on there. But if you'd like to join the Patreon now, if you've been listening for a while and you'd like to support me and what I'm up to here on Ride the Lightning, I would be very grateful if you chose to do that. You can go to patreon.com/Tesla podcast and join at any tier you like. Any of the tiers get early access to every week's episode and the ad-free episodes as well are on Patreon. And then if you're at that $10 level or higher, that's where you also, on top of those other things, get all of those lightning rounds as well. Back to Tesla news and back to the Model Y. Let's talk about the Model Y's dominance around the globe. Reports have emerged suggesting that the Tesla Model Y became the best-selling car in China last year. How about that? This comes via Teslarati, who says sales reached 480,309 units as estimated by China EV Data Tracker. This is up by 5.25% from the previous year. Tesla's strong finish in December of 2024, which saw almost 62,000 Model Y units sold, helped the all-electric crossover surpass the BYD Qin Plus sedan, which led China's rankings in the first 11 months of the year, as noted in a Car News China report. It should be noted that the BYD Qin Plus is a significantly more affordable vehicle than the Model Y. So thank you to Teslarati for that. And yes, it is definitely worth calling out that the Model Y costs a good bit more and still was number one. But it just speaks to the quality of the product. It really does. That's how good the Y is. I mean, that's why it's the number one seller around the world. But I mean, being number one in any market is a laudable achievement, and obviously being the number one selling car in the entire world is too. But this to me seems especially significant in China, where the domestic automakers tend to dominate. For instance, according to a chart posted in a related sales article on Teslarati, in Shanghai specifically, one of the biggest cities in China, of course, the Model Y was number one in Shanghai. The Model 3 was number 2, and then you have to go all the way down the list to number 7 before you get to another foreign automaker, and it's Volkswagen, if you're curious. So 3, 4, 5, 6, all domestic automakers, but Tesla topping the list in Shanghai. And by the way, with how much nicer Juniper is on the inside than the original version of the Model Y, and I can say this with a lot of confidence now that I've lived with my Highland Model 3 performance for the past week, it's really not a matter of whether or not the Model Y will continue to be number one in markets around the world. It's probably just a matter of when, especially, by the way, with the upgraded suspension. Now, nobody in media has had a chance to ride in the new Model Y yet, but my car rides noticeably better than my 2018 Model 3 performance, and the suspension is arguably the number one complaint, at least that I hear, about the existing Model Y. So it'll be really particularly interesting to see how improved the ride is, how improved the suspension is on the Juniper, on the new Model Y. What remains to be seen is how quickly Tesla can ramp up this new version. How long is the launch series going to go on before Tesla makes cheaper versions available, not just a long-range all-wheel drive with any option you want, just a la carte, so you can get a cheaper version of it versus the fully loaded $60,000 version, but also that long-range rear-wheel drive option for the new Model Y as well. Obviously, Tesla's going to go as fast as possible, which they would anyway, but they're especially going to do so now because it's the financial crown jewel of the entire company. I mean, there's clearly going to be a lull in Model Y sales in Q1 since it's been announced, but it's not delivering till March. But the question for me is, how quickly in Q2 can they ramp it with deliveries starting in, again, those deliveries could be at the very end of March. We don't know, right? I'm sure Tesla's just trying to make it happen as soon as possible and make it in early March, but it could turn into the end of March, which means Q2 will be key in ramping that new vehicle as quickly as they possibly can. Can they get back to full volume, full speed ahead production by the start of Q3? I think they can. That is my confident guess to the answer to that question. Now, speaking of the new Model Y, I know I've done it the last 2 weeks in a row, but I wanted to do one more Model Y-based Patreon poll. This one asking about how many of you are planning to buy the Juniper refresh. So the poll question this week was simple. Are you buying the new Model Y? A friendly reminder, you do not have to be backing me or supporting me in any way on Patreon in order to vote in each week's Patreon poll. It's there. It's just open to everybody. I want everybody to stop by, cast your vote, make your voice heard, be a part of the podcast each week. And you can do that on my Patreon page. It's all in one place, patreon.com/Tesla podcast. So again, that poll question for this week, are you buying the new Model Y? 38% of you, the plurality of votes, said, I'm not in the market for a new car anytime soon, but I'm interested in the Model Y when that time comes. Then 26% of you, so just over a quarter, said, I'm not interested in the Model Y. All right. I get it. I would have had to vote that too because I'm a sedan guy. I just always have been. Or Cybertruck. That would have been the other way I would have gone. So I would have voted right with you, 26% of folks. And then 13% of you said, yes, I definitely plan to buy the new Model Y as my next vehicle. 12% of you saying it depends on pricing, range, and or other features like power share. And then for one additional poll choice, I put bonus poll choice, as it probably applies to plenty of you. And that choice being, I just bought a Model Y, and that's 11% of you. So 11% of you just got one. So that's still, that's 38. It's over 40% of you said either yes, you definitely plan to, or when the time comes, you're interested. Thanks again for everybody for taking the time to stop by and vote in this week's Patreon poll. Again, about every Tuesday night typically is when those polls go up. While we're on the subject of regional sales data, Tesla remained the top EV seller in the US by a wide margin in 2024, gaining almost half of the emerging market and outselling the next several models combined with its own lineup, as shown in the latest data. A tip of the cap once again to Teslarati, who had this written up. They said, Cox Automotive released its Q4 and 2024 EV sales report, showing estimates of how many EVs were sold by brand and model, and highlighting how many units Tesla is delivering compared to other automakers for another year in a row. Total EV sales in the US grew an estimated 7.3% year over year, amounting to a little over 1.3 million units, of which Tesla sold over 633,000 of them, or 48.7%. Tesla's total sales amounted to more than double those of the rest of the top 10 EVs sold in 2024, a list which was comprised of vehicles from GM, Hyundai, Ford, and Rivian. The Model Y and Model 3 were the top two EVs sold in 2024, with over 372,000 Y and almost 190,000 Model 3s respectively, followed by the Ford Mustang Mach-E at 51,000 plus, the Hyundai Ioniq 5 over 44,000, and the Tesla Cybertruck at just under 39,000. By comparison, Tesla's top three models outsold the rest of the top 10 EVs, which totaled just under 247,000 units, made up of the Ford F-150 Lightning, the Honda Prologue, the Chevy Equinox, the Cadillac Lyriq, and the Rivian R1S. The rest of the industry's EVs combined made up 667,000 plus units, beating out Tesla's total sales by just 33,559 units. So let me call out some interesting things on the list, which I have in front of me. For instance, if you're wondering about the Model S and the Model X, as I certainly wonder, because as I've said many times, I think those are probably, or at least the Model S specifically and the Plaid, I think is the best overall car in the entire world when you factor price, performance, safety, comfort, driver assistance technology, looks, all of it. I think the Plaid is the best car, the best all-around car on planet Earth. So naturally, yes, I was curious about the S and the X. The Model X was number 15 on this list, and the Model S, number 24. And then on the overall brand rankings, I want to give a shout out to Rivian at number 6, who placed ahead of Honda, Nissan, Mercedes-Benz, and Audi in the EV department. And Rivian, they've got plenty of room to grow as well if they can get that R2 to market and successfully reach volume production. They've proven they can get a car to market, but they have not yet crossed that like Evel Knievel leap across the Grand Canyon on the dirt bike, which is going from low volume to high volume production. Of course, Tesla themselves still has plenty of room to grow as well, with the Model 2.5 vehicles expected to debut within the next several months. So in other words, it's highly unlikely that anyone will challenge Tesla on this list anytime soon. it's basically a fight for number 2. But on the flip side, I'm also rooting very hard for everybody to compete hard for that number 2 slot. Yeah, if you're curious about just maybe the whole top 25, I read you the top 10 already, but what's above the Model X at 15? Well, at 14, the Kia EV6, 13, the Kia EV9, 12, the Chevy Blazer EV, and 11, the BMW i4 sedan. And then the Model S at number 24, well, what's just above that? The Subaru Solterra, which I feel like I never see around here, or at least pretty rarely. The Ford E-Transit van at 22, the Rivian Amazon delivery van, which is interesting. And then at 20, the GMC Hummer EV. But they've combined the truck and SUV into one ranking, even though I think they are technically 2 different variants. 19, the BMW iX. It's not 9. It's just, it's the iX, which is their SUV. And then at 18, the Volkswagen ID4, 17, the Toyota BZ4X, and 16, the Nissan Aria? Yeah, I think it's Aria, which I do see around a decent bit. So, interesting stuff. I'll be very curious to see what this list looks like next year, after the Model 2.5s have been revealed and launched, I should say. Not just revealed, but launched. But also just how everybody else is doing. Like, can Ford continue ramping up on the Lightning? Can GM get those Blazer sales up? And will the Silverado get higher on the list, etc.? So it'd be really interesting to see how this list looks in 1 year's time. I've got plenty more Tesla news to tell you about, but a quick little pause here to tell you about a couple friends of the podcast. First up, the Climate Exchange raffle is coming up soon. Are you looking for some excitement in your life to ward off these cold, dark days of January? What if I told you that you could bring back your end-of-year excitement by adding a new holiday to your calendar? And what if that holiday included winning the EV of your dreams, the Tesla of your dreams? All of this is possible if you enter Climate Exchange's 9th EV raffle. Their grand prize winner can choose from over 60 EVs on the market, including, of course, any Tesla configured however you want. Even better, they also pay all of the fees and taxes on the car, meaning you get your dream Tesla with 0 out-of-pocket cost. Even better, Climate Exchange is giving away 2 additional cash prizes. So even if you don't win the car, you've got a shot at $12,500 cash for the second place winner and $7,500 for the third place winner. All proceeds benefit a small nonprofit that's doing really important work for our planet to help states pass climate policies. So no matter what, your ticket is supporting an important cause. So buy your tickets today and mark a new holiday on your calendar. Climate Exchange's EV raffle drawing on February 28th. Fewer than half of the tickets remain, so get yours before they sell out. Go to carbonraffle.org/RTL to get your tickets, or click the link in the episode description. That's carbonraffle.org/RTL. And then, of course, my wonderful friends at Accelerate Auto and their XCare extended warranty option. The big thing here, as I like to mention, is the customizability of their plan versus Tesla's extended warranty, which has no customization at all. It's a take it or leave it 2-year, 25,000-mile warranty from Tesla that you have to buy before your factory warranty runs out. That is not the case with XCare. You can get pretty much any amount of mileage you want, practically any amount of time, up to 10 years, up to 125,000 extra miles. I've got a 3-year, 40,000-mile extended plan on my car, my 2018, obviously. So not only that, but XCare offers everything that Tesla's extended warranty does, meaning a $100 deductible and 24/7 roadside assistance, but xCare goes farther than Tesla and offers rental reimbursement and trip interruption coverage as well. So, if that sounds good, if you're like me, hanging on to a Tesla for well past its warranty period, I do recommend the Accelerate Auto xCare extended warranty option, just configured however you want it. Go to accelerateauto.com/xcare and don't forget to use the discount code LIGHTNING for $100 off your purchase. That's accelerateauto.com/XCARE, discount code LIGHTNING. You can also click the link in the episode description as well. Here's a bit of a strange story this week. A Tesla Cybertruck was seized by the UK police. Saw this one on Drive Tesla Canada, who writes, a Tesla Cybertruck has been seized by police in Greater Manchester. The Cybertruck was legally registered, but not in the UK, or it is not yet compliant with local regulations. According to a post from the Greater Manchester Police Department on X, the Cybertruck was pulled over in Whitefield, is it Bury? I'm going to say it's Bury, earlier this week. The driver, who is a permanent UK resident, was found to be operating the vehicle despite it being registered and insured abroad, which is a violation of UK road laws. Authorities confirmed that the Cybertruck is not road legal in the UK as it lacks a certificate of conformity, which is required to meet British vehicle safety standards. Due to these infractions, the vehicle was seized under Section 165 of the Road Traffic Act, and the driver was formally reported. Authorities have emphasized that while some may see the seizure as an overreach, it is a necessary enforcement measure to ensure the safety of all road users. The driver of the seized vehicle will now have to prove ownership and obtain proper insurance before reclaiming the truck. However, even if it is returned, it will remain illegal to drive on public roads in the UK. Well, I confess that I certainly don't know enough about British law, and by enough, I mean anything at all, to give a particularly informed opinion on this, but based on how the story has been presented, it would certainly seem like the owner of the Cybertruck knew full well what they were up to and just went ahead and drove the truck around anyway. I mean, I keep reading back over the, quote, being registered and insured abroad piece, and I do feel like I must be missing a key bit of context and or nuance here, because the way it reads, it sounds like if I bring my car to the UK from anywhere else, say, visit it, like what if I have dual citizenship and I bring my, so I'm not a permanent resident, which I realize that this person was, but I bring my non-UK car to the UK, maybe I'm driving from France or Germany or something, then my car could potentially get reported and seized? That is, if my car isn't deemed road legal in the UK, and maybe that's not an issue with any car that's properly sold anywhere else in Europe, I'm not quite sure, but in the end, it does sound like this Cybertruck owner, I don't know what I was trying to say there, this Cybertruck owner was knowingly poking the bear a little bit. Now that said, I'm sure they had some serious cool points, being the only Cybertruck on the road. But that said, I do hope that that person gets their Cybertruck back, since the report only said if the truck gets returned, and then he just has to, well, not necessarily get it out of the country, but not operate it on public roads. So I wonder what the next chapter of this particular story is going to be. But this was such a weird one, I thought I would pass it along. Let's keep our trip around the world, around the Tesla world going, and head to the Philippines, where the Philippine president thanked Tesla for accelerating the country's EV sector. Back to Teslarati, who wrote, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. formally welcomed Tesla's entry into the Philippines. In his remarks, the president stated that the launch of Tesla's flagship service center was a step, quote, towards a more environment-friendly transportation system, end quote, in the Philippines. He also stated that Tesla's arrival in the Philippines was a, quote, significant step in the fight against climate change. He continued saying, while it is true that electric vehicles are currently seen as premium products, Tesla's entry into the Philippine market signals much more than high-tech cars on the road. It is a step, a very significant step forward to our long-term transformation towards a more environment-friendly transportation system, end quote. Marcos then praised Tesla's investment in the Philippines, stating that it's a sign that the EV giant is recognizing the potential of the country. Quote, Tesla, thank you for believing in the Philippines. Your investment in the country extends beyond transportation and infrastructure. It is in the people and potential of the country, he added. The Philippines' EV sector is still in its very early stages, though the national government has introduced measures to make electric cars more compelling to consumers. These include the removal of excise taxes on EV batteries, eliminating tariffs on electric and hybrid vehicles until 2028, and setting a goal for 50% EV market share by 2040. Marcos also shared his goal of Tesla eventually investing in a manufacturing hub in the country. Quote, more than helping environmental sustainability, Tesla also empowers our workforce. Every hire represents an investment in the Filipino talent that will drive this transition forward. With plans to expand further, Tesla is building a generation of Filipinos equipped to lead in the global shift towards sustainable technologies such as this, he said. Well, it is great to have an official Tesla presence in another new market. Now, this move on Tesla's part probably made, at least I think, no doubt made with an eye towards the introduction of those Model 2.5s, as I've been calling them, which should be more appealing to markets that favor smaller cars, like not unlike the UK, which we were just talking about a minute ago. And by the way, kudos to the government there in the Philippines for making a big push towards electrification. 50% market share for EVs in the next 15 years, that's an aggressive goal. And welcoming Tesla into the country will certainly only help get closer to that goal. I suppose time will tell if Tesla does decide to build a gigafactory or some other manufacturing facility there. Unfortunately, as we've all seen, Tesla seems to have gotten out of the new gigafactory business, at least for the time being. Anybody out there remember Giga Mexico? Yeah, I'll bet you haven't thought about that one in a while until I just mentioned it, and for the record, I'm right there with you. Before making my notes for this podcast, I hadn't thought about Giga Mexico in a while myself. Anyway, Tesla's not even slow rolling Giga Mexico. They're just straight up paused it for now, at least for the indefinite future, I guess. There's no timeline on it. Anyway, Tesla will probably need some sort of manufacturing presence in that region of the world, the Filipino region, at some point. So we'll see if the fact that the Philippines are making it known good and early here just how much they want it, see if that helps them whenever Tesla does finally decide to move forward with something in that region. Next this week, I unfortunately have to conclude our trip around the Tesla world with some bad news. But don't worry, there's one more good news story after this. But here's a not so great news story. Tesla has announced significant price increases for all models in Canada on February 1st. I saw this story on, fittingly, Drive Tesla Canada, who writes, Tesla's online configurator now has a banner announcing the price changes. While the banner only says prices will, quote, increase up to, we have learned the exact price increases for each model and each trim. For the Model 3, the price increases range from $4,000 for the long-range rear-wheel drive variant. Now, of course, this is all Canadian dollars. up to a whopping $9,000 price increase for the Model 3 Performance. The Model S, Model X, and Model Y fare a little better, but will still see substantial $4,000 Canadian price increases across all trims. Here's a breakdown. Model 3 long-range rear-wheel drive, $4,000 price increase. Model 3 long-range all-wheel drive, $8,000 increase. As just mentioned, Model 3 Performance up $9,000 Canadian, and then every trim of the Y, every trim of the S, every trim of the X, all increasing by 4,000 Canadian dollars. Well, as Drive Tesla Canada continues, these increases mark one of the most significant price adjustments Tesla has made in the Canadian market in recent years, and come just over a week after Tesla increased prices on all Model 3 and Y trims by $1,000 Canadian, a move that has eliminated all Teslas from eligibility for the federal $5,000 IZEV rebate. While Tesla has not officially provided an explanation for the price hikes, the fact the price changes come into effect on February 1st gives us one clue. That's the date President Trump has said he will impose 25% tariffs on Canadian goods coming into the US. While that by itself doesn't impact Tesla's prices in Canada, the Canadian government has said it will impose the same tariffs on goods coming from the US into Canada. Drive Tesla Canada concludes by saying, another possible reason contributing to the price increases is the value of the Canadian dollar, which has dropped significantly in recent months against the US dollar. Well, thank you to Drive Tesla Canada for that full breakdown. And boy, not a lot to say here other than this is just a real bummer. I know that Tesla is a business and they're going to do what's best for their business, but I don't have to like it. I think, as I've said many times, I think Tesla more often than not does the right thing. This is certainly not the right thing for consumers. It's clearly Tesla feels it's the right thing for their business. But yeah, I'm certainly not going to sit on the sidelines and cheer this one on, especially because it's these prices. I mean, this is a direct impact on customers. I'm sure Tesla, again, has impacts on their side, but boy, this is a real stinger to the wallet for Canadian Tesla fans. Hopefully, it will prove to be temporary, depending on how the political winds blow over the next months and years. But all I can really say is that my heart goes out to my Canadian listeners on this. I mean, the only random thought that I could come up with in some attempt to be helpful, and this is probably not a thing, maybe it's not feasible, but just to say it out loud on the off chance that it maybe is helpful. Could you just buy a Tesla in the US and then bring it home to Canada? I know there are Canadian spec Teslas to account for homologation. I think that involves French language on labels and stuff like that. I'm not sure of the extent of the changes that have to happen for Teslas sold new in Canada versus sold in the US, but could you just buy one in the US and then bring it home to Canada? I mean, I suppose you'd need a United States address to do that, like a delivery address, whether it's a friend or family member, or heck, maybe there are businesses out there that do this exact thing for this exact reason. I don't know. Or I suppose the other option is to buy a used Tesla, which maybe not everybody wants to do. They want a new car with a new warranty, but I suppose you could buy a used Tesla. Maybe, again, it's especially a useless suggestion on my part if you want the new Model Y, which won't be available in the used market for a good little while here. So if anybody smarter than me out there has a more constructive suggestion for how Canadian Tesla fans can, I don't say this in a diabolical way or anything, but how they can circumvent this in any way, these Canadian price increases, please feel free to email me, teslapodcast@gmail.com, or call in. And I'll give you the call-in instructions in a little while when I get to the Ride the Lightning Hotline segment of the podcast. Okay, I promised I would end the news block here on a happier note, and I will do that. So here we go. The performance modding experts over at Unplugged Performance, well, they brought the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department out to a private track to test out their line of upfit police vehicles, which included mostly the Model Y, but also the Cybertruck police vehicle and even the Plaid Model S police vehicle that they put together. So the Unplugged Performance folks put up a video of this, of the day that they spent with these law enforcement officers on their YouTube channel. And I wanted to play you 3 clips that's basically just showing or playing what a number of the police officers, the law enforcement officers, the sheriffs here, had to say about the Teslas after their experience. Here's one sheriff commenting after getting back in his regular gas-powered Ford Explorer police vehicle.
The difference is absolutely staggering. I don't want to go back to this now. It's an incredible feeling after driving the Tesla modified package that you guys have the last couple of laps and getting back into it. This just feels so much more sluggish. The cornering just feels so much more just kind of out of place. The amount of times you can just move with so much more precision in the Tesla, the acceleration, the braking, the handling capability of it is just honestly far superior. Just the absolute dynamic and fun ability that you have in that car is just, it's a whole nother world. And I definitely don't want to go back to it. So.
Yep, that officer is pretty much just like the rest of us. You don't want to go back after driving a Tesla, especially when you have to immediately get back in that older gas-powered car. And that's when it's, I know that for me, before I was lucky enough to own my 2018 Tesla, when I would have the privilege of driving one, usually my cousin Pat's car, and then I would immediately get back in my own car, it was just like, aw. It was very, very deflating in a very first world way. All right, the next clip here is in the debrief session after their day on the track. Here's a couple more minutes of various officers giving their feedback. And by the way, when you hear ESC in this, if you're not familiar, that's referring to electronic stability control.
Curious, maybe what you thought it was, and maybe the biggest surprises or learnings of the day.
For me, it's the acceleration and the letting off the gas and having the regen. Those were the 2 big ones. I didn't think it would. You see all the YouTube stuff and all the other stuff, and you're like, that's bull. And that was by far the most impressive thing. And then you don't got to use a lot of the brakes. Even going around some of these corners like that, it was just take your foot off, and it kind of did it for you.
Let's say handling characteristics. Yeah. It actually handled a heck of a lot better than I thought it would. Obviously, it handles like an all-wheel drive car. You can tell it's all-wheel drive by the way it grips the corners and things like that. But the ESC, when it kicks in handling the corners, in addition to the regen, it works really, really well. It's smooth. I mean, as a driver, it's nice because I don't have to 2-foot brake. You know, I don't have to have my left foot on the brake pedal and right foot on the gas to be able to go through a corner properly to make it work and to have it smooth. I can just let off the gas a little bit. It does what I need it to do as almost a trail brake type scenario, and then come around and out of a turn. And it handled very well. And even when I tried to push it a little too much in a couple spots intentionally, it caught it, but it wasn't like an out of control catch where in a lot of the other ESCs, like in the Explorers and some of the other ones, if the ESC kicks in, it almost feels uncontrollable a little bit, where it's you're fighting the ESC. It almost complemented your driving with the ESC. So I would say I'm thoroughly impressed by how it handled and performed. Kind of made a believer out of me.
Well, just even at collision avoidance, the handling. You know, in the Crown Vics, the fastest you can go, 45 maybe, 50 if you're lucky. These guys were getting it at 56, no problem, which is
unheard of.
Wow.
Okay, and finally, here's just under 2 more minutes of some other officers giving their impressions. And spoiler, they all seem pretty won over. And just for my own note here, I think it's just really neat to hear from law enforcement officers about their experience with EVs, since they have a very particular and also rather demanding of the car use case for these things. So that's why I wanted to play these clips and why I enjoyed this video on the Unplugged Performance YouTube channel. I think this is interesting stuff, and I agree with Unplugged Performance, who's got their whole upfit line. I think EVs and certainly Teslas in particular with their performance can make really effective patrol cars for police officers. So here's that last clip.
First time driving an electric car, and as I was mentioning to these guys earlier, I think the difference between the two vehicles is just absolutely staggering. So after doing roughly 20, 30 laps in the Tesla, handling that course, and then I jumped in the Explorer, did the same course, and I can tell you right off the bat, I was pretty much didn't want to be an Explorer anymore. The overall performance of those Teslas was just phenomenal. It's just a lot more fun. It handles more effectively. It's a lot safer of a propulsion engine to get us around those courses and to basically handle just day-to-day activities of patrol. So I'm sold on it. I was kind of hesitant when it came to electric vehicles prior to today.
I was equally amazed at just how much better it is than the Explorer as far as handling, acceleration. The braking component really was hard for me to get around because, oh my God, this car's almost driving itself for me. Yeah. And it's going to correct some of our bad behaviors or bad habits. I enjoyed it. I'd never driven one until today, and I have a different mindset here at 2 o'clock than I did, or 1 o'clock than I did
At 6 a.m. this morning.
At 6 a.m. this morning. I was not necessarily sold, but I am now.
Mike's one of our best drivers here, and I've never seen people keep up with Mike like they did in that Tesla. That was, to me, that was like...
Couldn't catch.
Yeah. There's no way.
I was working real hard.
And he was pushing, Mike's pushing that Explorer as far as it was capable of performing, but it can't perform any more than what it was doing. And the Teslas, it seemed like, even you guys saw it, you guys didn't put much effort into it, and you're keeping up with it. So that, to me, is telling, is that you got a professional driver and you're keeping up with him with no problem.
Well, after all that, all I can say is that hopefully word gets around in the law enforcement community and more police departments convert to the Model Y, since, at least in my humble opinion, I think the Y seems, of all the Teslas, like the best overall vehicle for probably most police patrol car work. All right, that is the end of another super busy week of Tesla news. And of course, we know that next week is definitely going to be busy because it's the earnings call. So you can look forward to that. But that's everything in this week's Tesla news. Next up, though, is your Ride the Lightning hotline. It's your calls coming up next.
Hi, this is Franz von Holzhausen, and you're listening to Ride the Lightning with Ryan McCaffrey, the Tesla unofficial podcast.
Well, this episode's already over an hour long, so much to talk about, but I do want to get to a few of your phone calls here in the Ride the Lightning hotline. So I welcome and invite you to call in if you've got a question, comment, or discussion topic. Maybe you want to react to the new Model Y. Maybe you're ordering one, what have you. Give me a call anytime, and there are two easy ways to do it. Either use your smartphone's built-in voice recording software and record that question. Please try to keep your question to 90 seconds or less so that I can get to as many callers each week as possible. You can email that in to me at teslapodcast@gmail.com. Or you can take that same 90-second or less question and just call in and leave a message anytime you want on the Ride the Lightning hotline. It's a toll-free number, and that number is 1-888-989-8752. Again, that's 1-888-989-TSLA. And if you know someone special out there with an upcoming birthday, anniversary, graduation, or some other special occasion, you can give them a unique gift of recorded voices from friends and family telling them why they're special. The recordings can be podcasted or put onto a keepsake. Visit lifeonrecord.com to learn more. First up this week is Sang from Davis, California.
Hi Ryan, this is Sang from Davis, California. I have two requests to Tesla to eliminate my only pet peeves with my Model Y. First, in FSD, do not automatically activate the wipers. Instead, flash a warning message that the front camera is obscured and let me decide whether to use the wipers myself or let autopilot disengage. And second, I would love for them to add a volume slider control to Joe mode. The current toggle switch probably brings the volume down from a 10 to a 7, and I'd like the ability to go even quieter. Thank you.
These are two excellent suggestions, saying that I am happy to co-sign and put out into the world through the podcast here in the hopes that they find the attention of the right folks at Tesla. This is good, constructive feedback, and I really hope that both of these happen soon. Thank you so much for calling in. Next up this week, here's Andrew from Orlando.
Hey, Ryan, this is Andrew from Orlando, Florida. I've got a couple things for you. First of all, as you know, I've got a Palladium Model S 2022. And with the binnacle display, with the latest software update, I've got 12.6.1 FSD. The display of the current set speed, which is right above the actual speed, has become super tiny. It's in kind of a darker blue color, and the font is ridiculously small, impossible to read. I can't imagine there's a setting to change this, but hopefully Tesla can fix this. Hopefully this message gets out to the greater Tesla sphere, including Tesla software engineers, so they can update this. It is ridiculously small. The other issue, and I will admit readily that this is a total first world problem, is with the awesome feature that was added, a couple years ago now, of waypoints for navigation for full self-driving. I often use that for running errands locally. And that'll involve, stopping at, say, Panera drive-thru, using my SIP Club membership, which is awesome, by the way, to get my iced coffee and whatnot, and then moving on to my next destination. What I find happens is, maybe it's because I'm not parking or, going right to the front of the restaurant, my car does not recognize that I have gotten to that destination. And so in order for me to tell it to move on to the next destination, my next waypoint, I've got to edit the waypoint list manually and remove the waypoint. This happens to me all the time. Again, any suggestions, that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Andrew, it's always a pleasure to hear from you. I have to say, for everybody else, Andrew is a super nice guy. When I was graciously invited to TeslaCon Florida a couple years ago, Andrew very generously picked me up from the airport, saving me a huge Uber because where the event was nowhere close to the airport. And what was even better is that Andrew and I geeked out over Tesla and Disney theme park stuff on the conversation the whole drive back to the hotel, which was definitely fun for me. Anyway, Andrew, I think you've given two very reasonable, constructive pieces of feedback for Tesla here. You're right that item number one on your list probably just needs to be tweaked via a future software update. And item number two could certainly be solved if Tesla would just add an I'm here button that you can press on the nav whenever you're super close to that waypoint destination like you're talking about. And hopefully, again, both of these can get done in an upcoming update. I'd love to see it. Thank you so much for your call. Just got time for one more call. This week it comes from Evan in St. Louis.
Happy New Year, Ryan. It's Evan in St. Louis calling to ask you or the listeners if you know of a way to precondition your battery for supercharging prior, in a way other than getting in the car and actually driving. If there's a way through the app or some other means. I've started working at a place that's just far enough away from my home where I can't make it there and back on 100% charge. So fortunately, there's a supercharger directly across the street. Unfortunately, when it gets super cold, like it is here currently in the Midwest, I get the lovely snowflake icon on my battery, and I don't have enough time to precondition the battery because it takes literally 30 seconds to drive to the supercharger. I wish I could use the level 2 chargers that they have at the hospital. However, it's $5 a kilowatt hour, so I'm not doing that. But anyway, if you or the listeners know if there's a way to do it, that'd be great. Otherwise, I guess I'm just stuck with the 60 kilowatt rate that I'm currently getting at this V3. So any help would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Ryan.
Hi, Evan. Great to hear from you. And know that you are not the first person to call in requesting this. I seem to recall that it came up recently, and I thought that maybe going into your Tesla app and selecting a supercharger and sending that destination to your car would do it. I think that's what I said the last time this came up. But I went and tested that myself, and it didn't start preconditioning the battery. So I don't think there's a way to do this. If in fact there is, I hope someone will call in to let us all know so that the information can benefit both you and everybody else listening. But if there's not, I again hope that somebody from Tesla hears this and will consider adding that functionality in a future software update. Evan, safe travels. Thank you so much for calling in. Thank you to everybody that kindly took time out of their day to call in to potentially be featured here on the podcast. Again, you can send in those calls in one of the two easy ways that I outlined there just a few minutes ago at the top of this segment. Now, on to talking about my car, the Soul of Adventure, my new Tesla Model 3 Performance. Actually, before I do that, I just want to mention that Daisy the Boxer, to my left here on the couch, is recovering from a minor surgery. Today really felt like it's Friday here, the surgery was Tuesday. Today really felt like the first day she was all the way back. And a lot of you, I bring this up not for any sort of sympathy or anything, because thankfully she's fine. I just want to say that when I had posted this on social media on the day of the surgery on Tuesday, because I had posted that, even though it should be fine, it's a minor thing, I was still a little nervous, right? Like, she's had a heart condition history, even though her heart's fine now, and she's getting older, right? She's 7.5 at this point. So I just posted that I was still a little anxious about it, and a number of you were very kind and sent along some words of support, which I really appreciate. So thank you all for your kindness on that. She's doing great. And Mine of the Future Service Dog was strategically not here this week while Daisy could recover. She'll be back over the weekend. So I think that'll be fun to have the two pups back together again. Talking about my new car, the Soul of Adventure. Well, I've lived with it for about a week now. My first impressions of finally just getting to drive the heck out of this thing. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's just better in every way, big and small, than my 2018 version 1.0 Model 3 Performance. Now, again, I recognize that the Model 3 in general, and specifically the Model 3 Performance, has evolved a little from before even the refresh, before the Highland came along. So, if you were going from a 2022 or a 2023 Model 3 Performance to the current one, it might not seem quite as drastic, although it probably would still be quite a difference. But going from my car, my 2018, the Spirit of Adventure, is literally, no hyperbole, one of the first Model 3 Performances that Tesla ever built. The first run they did at GA4, because there was a picture that the CEO posted on his Twitter account of the first one coming off the line. The first batch they did, my car was in that batch, because the first run of them were multi-coat red exterior, white interior with the performance package. And anyway, all that is just to say that I went from the oldest possible Model 3 Performance to now the brand new one. And man, it is just so impressive. There's not a single thing, not one thing in the car that seems like a downgrade. I do recognize some of you out there would say that the lack of indicator stalks would be a downgrade. And you know what? Hey, I would respect your opinion on that. For me, it's a wash. I definitely don't think it's an upgrade, but I don't personally feel like it's a downgrade. And maybe maybe that comes from having had time to get used to the turn signal buttons in the Cybertruck about a year ago or what have you. But in any case, the car is it's a complete upgrade in every way. Now, on the performance front, it is noticeably quicker than my old Model 3 Performance, which of course the numbers suggest that, but the butt dyno also suggests it too. But I went and measured. I did not simply rely on butt dyno. I measured with my Dragy, D-R-A-G-Y, my little Dragy device that I bought when I got my Model 3 Performance in 2018 to actually measure this stuff. And I brought it to my spot, and I got there with 87% state of charge. And I immediately, my first run, the first shot, I ripped off a verified run, because Dragy actually can measure, it's precise enough to measure elevation. So if you're going slightly downhill, it will invalid. It'll say the run is invalid. It has to be on flat ground within like 1%, either way, 1% incline or decline. And so the first 0 to 60 sprint that I ran was verified, 87% state of charge, 2.99 seconds without rollout, or 2.8 seconds with the 1 foot rollout, which is 0.1 better than what Tesla advertises. So it was pretty impressive. And I couldn't quite I got real close, like 3.05. I did several more runs, but I need to go do it again with a higher state of charge, because even the Model 3 Performance, unlike the Plaid SRX, you will get better results out of a higher state of charge on the Model 3 Performance. So I need to go do it again with like 95% and just see if I can shave another 0.05 off or something like that. So also, just on the freeway, it definitely keeps pulling after that initial 0 to 60 sprint, which the old one doesn't. The old one starts to fade pretty quickly. The new one still has power there, even at freeway speed. It is the performance. It is just, the car wants to move at all times. It wants to go. Now, as for the rest of the car itself, just in terms of the build quality, all that other non-performance things, it's a significant improvement in all areas. I mean, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know here, but the seats just feel more comfortable. Having the cooling functionality is such a nice creature comfort. I really love that the Model 3 Performance gets a custom and improved seat now. I mean, the regular new Model 3 still has a new seat compared to the old one, but I love that the Performance one gets a special seat. I think that's a nice thing. I'm glad Tesla's doing that to further differentiate the Performance car from the other ones. But I really like the seat. It is super nice, and I'm very much enjoying it so far. The doors, as you've seen probably or heard a million times, the doors close with a much more satisfying thunk than the old car. And yes, it is quite a bit quieter inside, which, I mean, that was the first thing. When I finally went and did a test drive, when the Model 3 Performance, the new one, was finally available for test drive last summer, that was the first thing that jumped out at me. I was like, whoa, this thing is way quieter inside. And it does ride noticeably better. It's still a firm ride. I mean, it's on sport suspension with 20-inch wheels. But again, compared apples to apples to my 2018 Model 3 Performance, it does ride noticeably better. It soaks up bumps in the road noticeably better than the old one. There's one thing I didn't know going in, though, that I didn't realize until, I don't know if it was after delivery or just between the time that I ordered and was waiting for delivery, but the new Model 3 Performance is half an inch lower than the old one, which probably, if I put them side by side and you were looking at them from the profile view, like from the side, the stance might look a little nicer than the old one. But in my strange San Francisco scenario with my garage and I'm on a hill, and the fact that the new car is half an inch lower created an unanticipated problem for me, unanticipated first world problem. It bottoms out going in and out of my garage on one side every single time, even with no other weight, no other people, dogs, anything else in the car. Because again, I'm on an incline. And the way I had solved this with the 2018 was I actually had a concrete person come and put a little, basically speed hump on one side, on the downhill side, to lift that side of the car up to get it, to keep it from bottoming out as it would come in and out. But the new car is half an inch lower, and it now will bottom out every single time. Thankfully, I thought of I thought of a makeshift solution, because I guess the permanent solution would be to either have that little that little hump extended further out, or redo the entire driveway for thousands of dollars, which I'm not exactly in a position to do right now financially because I just bought a car. But I found a temporary solution. So when I thought I was buying the Cybertruck, I had preemptively ordered one of those like heavy duty cable cover ramps like you'd see at a concert where you know it's got wires, cords running through it, cables running through it, and it's like, you know, yellow on top and it's like a little ramp, and it's just so that nobody trips over the cords, right? A lot of people in my San Francisco neighborhood do this, which I think is a very considerate thing to do for your neighbors, so that, you know, if you're jogging by, walking by, you don't trip over a cable if your car is charging outside, because not everybody can even get their car inside because these are all 100-year-old houses. Anyway, you don't care about that. But a lot of people charge from the street. And I am now also doing that because I can only fit one of the two Model 3s in the garage. And so I thought, well, wait, why don't I try the cable cover ramp thing as sort of an extension of this little cement speed hump thing that I put in here, and maybe that'll keep the car elevated long enough to get in and out. And sure enough, it worked. I was so surprised. Usually, I'm so not handy with those kinds of practical solutions. I'm just so bad with that stuff. I was so happy and pleasantly surprised that it worked. So, thankfully, that was a cheap solution to a legitimate problem of, you know, bottoming out a brand new car on one side every single time it goes in and out. So I only suffered the 1 mile per hour bottom out a few times before coming to that solution. So I am very grateful to have that solved, to have at least a Band-Aid solution in place right now. By the way, the sound system is amazing. I've been having so much fun. I've got it all dialed in now. The bass is just so much better, and the soundstage is so good. I mean, I've been having a blast just cranking music when it's just me in the car, because I have to retrain my Live 1 algorithm anyway. So I'm just like requesting songs and doing the thumbs up and getting them into my favorites list, and I've just been cranking it up, having a good time. And one of those times was on the way home today. So today I got to not only take a long drive, but at the end of that long drive was my window tinting appointment. So I got my windows tinted today. I want to give a shout out to OC Detailing in Fremont. They're not too far from the Tesla factory. So my regular detailer, Immaculate Reflections, Jeff at Immaculate Reflections, who of course did, as I explained last week, did the entire car, the paint correction, the paint protection film, the ceramic coating, and a lot more, a bunch of little things. The car looks incredible. Jeff did an amazing job. But Jeff doesn't do window tinting. So I went to OC Detailing because that's a lot of Tesla owners go there. They had, I believe at one point, because I follow them on Instagram, I believe they had 7 Cybertrucks in their shop at once for wraps or tints or both. But I had brought my 2018, and also Jeff is at Immaculate Reflections is actually really good friends with Joe, the owner of OC Detailing. But I brought my 2018 to Joe at OC Detailing for the window tinting then, and I specifically wanted to go very light with that car. I don't like the blackout super dark look, and I just wanted to reject the heat. I kind of wanted to be able to see inside because I liked the contrast of the multi-coat red paint and then the white interior on the inside. So this time around, I decided I wanted to go a little darker, like just because I'll say, I may have said this before, and by the way, we're at the portion, all the content, all the news and what have you is done. So if you're bored silly listening to me talk about my new car, you can either fast forward or just hit stop and you've gotten all the content, all the Tesla news and such for the week. I won't be offended. That's the beauty of a podcast. I try to structure it so that all the most relevant stuff is up front. And now we're in the talk about me part of the podcast. But so to finish on this tinting thing, over time, I've kind of thought, well, you know what? I'd like to go maybe just a touch darker. I still want to be able to see in and out. I don't like the blackout look. Again, I still don't. I didn't then and I don't now. And I also wanted to do the windshield just very lightly this time, which I didn't do the first time. I only did the side windows the first time on the 2018. So this time I wanted to go just a touch darker and do the windshield, because I could feel it even on the 2018, even with the side windows tinted, a lot of heat comes in through that huge windshield, right? It makes sense. So this time around, I got there and I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. So one of the folks on Joe's team was there when I got there and came out and was showing me. She was showing me a Model S that belonged to one of the detailers on Joe's team. Said, okay, well this car is 40%, and it turns out I had 50% on the Spirit of Adventure in 2018, which I thought it was even lighter than that. I'm surprised it was even 50. But I thought, okay, if that was 50, let me see 40. And it so happened that a Model S there had 40, and that looked pretty good. So I was a little nervous that when I picked the car up at the end of the day that it was going to look too dark, but I went 40 all around, so 40% on the sides, and I did the rear glass too, which I also didn't do in 2018 on the Spirit of Adventure. And then on the windshield, I did just do 70%, like the lightest, just wanted a little tint just to reject some heat. Didn't want any darkness in there. I wanted to be able to see clearly, and have other people see me clearly as well. And so I picked the car up at dusk, like it was right at the end of the day. And I got there. There's pictures on my Instagram. DMC_Ryan is my username if you'd like to see. And I am thrilled. Now I still have to see it, which by the time you hear this, I'll have seen it. I have to see it in broad daylight, but even there was enough light at dusk when I picked it up. I love it. It looks perfect to me. It's just the right amount of tint. It's exactly what I was hoping for, and I'm over the moon with it. And Joe and his team at OC Detailing did a great job. And again, I did my 2018 with him, and they also did my chrome delete after I got my 0G wheels on the Spirit of Adventure too. So this was the third time I've patronized OC Detailing, and he does great work. So if you need excellent window tinting, just professional high-level detail, high-level tinting from pros who will take great care of your car in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, check out OC Detailing in Fremont. Okay, real quick, an entertainment recommendation for this week. A surprise release of a game that's near and dear to me, and the game is Ninja Gaiden 2 Black on Xbox. It is a sort of revised version of Ninja Gaiden 2, which came out in 2008 for the Xbox 360. Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, it's basically a remake / remaster of it. They've modernized the visuals of it, so it looks like a game that came out in 2025, but the core mechanics are all the same. It is a fast action, skill-based, challenging action game. I reviewed it for Official Xbox Magazine when I worked there to start my career, and I gave that game a 9 out of 10 when back in 2008. And firing it up this week, this revised version on Xbox Series X, but it's also available on PC and PlayStation 5. And if you have it on Xbox or PC, if you have Game Pass, you can just download it on Game Pass. You don't have to actually buy the game. It is still awesome. The game holds up, super fun. So check that out if that sounds like a fun time in the video game space for you. Okay, time for your Tesla pro tip of the week. It comes from Ken in Columbus, Ohio.
Hi, Ryan. This is Ken from Columbus, Ohio. I was calling with a pro tip for you. This one's pretty cool. If you have FSD, either bought it outright or subscribe, you can make the car self-park in your garage. I did this in my garage by buying some duct tape, and I put the duct tape down in the form of a parking space. And as I pull into my driveway, it'll show up as a parking space in the interface, and you can have the car self-park for you. A few caveats with that, though. You want as much contrast as possible. I used white tape, and I have a very light colored concrete garage, and sometimes it doesn't quite see it very well. So if I would redo it, I'd probably get yellow tape so it still looks like a parking space. So just watch out for that. And I would also be careful the first couple times you do it, just to make sure that it parks safely. And I am in no way responsible if you hit something in your garage. Anyway, it is pretty neat, and I thought some of your listeners might appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan. Bye.
I absolutely love this hack, Ken, and I suspect a number of folks out there listening to this will go pick up some tape, maybe even reflective yellow tape would be even better, and give this a try. And yes, you and I are both absolved of blame if this goes wrong for anyone. Try this at your own risk, but if it works for you, it is going to be pretty darn cool. Love this one, Ken. Thank you so much. If anybody else out there has a good Tesla pro tip of the week, please send it my way. And the way to do that is to use either of the two Ride the Lightning hotline call-in methods and just send that pro tip my way. Okay, time for a few friends of the podcast before I scoot out of here, because hopefully one or more of these vendors will be of use to you sooner or later in your Tesla life. Starting with abstractocean.com. They've got so many great aftermarket Tesla accessories, from lighting kits for the inside and outside of the car to tempered glass screen protectors for all the Teslas to the drop-in cup holder stabilizers. The list goes on and on. You got to go take a look. Head on over to abstractocean.com, click on whichever Tesla you have, pile everything that you like that's for your Tesla into your online shopping cart, and when you get to checkout, use the coupon code RTLPodcast to get 15% off of your first order. That coupon code again is RTLPodcast, all one word, no spaces. The snap plate, which is the front license plate bracket I recommend rather than the one that Tesla gives you. When I was putting all of my all-weather interior mats into my car, I had my own little Christmas morning, my adult Tesla Christmas morning the other day after I got my car back from Immaculate Reflections, where I'd had all these accessories, and I just got to open all of them and put them all and install them all in the car. And when I got to the trunk, and specifically the rear trunk well, like the sub trunk, popped that open, and I was like, oh, right. There's the front license plate bracket. I can take that out. I'll never be using that because it uses automotive tape to stick to the front of the car. What am I going to stick that to the beautiful ultra red paint? No. Use a snap plate, which will not harm your paint. And if you ever want to remove the front license plate bracket, remove your snap plate, it's going to leave no unsightly hardware behind and not damage your paint. So get your snap plate at everyamp.com/RTL. There's the vanilla snap plate and the stronger snap plate plus. Grab whichever one of them works best for you. So everyamp.com/RTL, and there's a discount on these using the coupon code RTL. I mentioned Immaculate Reflections earlier. I'm could not be happier with how my car turned out. Just an absolutely incredible work by Jeff at Immaculate Reflections. I highly recommend that if you're in or going to be in the greater San Francisco Bay Area, take your car there and treat it. Jeff will treat it very well. Whether you want to do paint correction to get your finish looking as beautiful as it possibly can. And again, if you're ever here and you want to get together with me and it works out where we can meet up which have the privilege to do with a lot of listeners, you will see my car, and it is a rolling advertisement for the talent of Jeff at Immaculate Reflections. The car looks awesome. So yeah, whether you want to do paint correction, paint protection film on some of the car or all of the car, maybe you want to do ceramic coating because you don't really feel like waxing the car twice a year, but you want to take care of that paint, you can do ceramic coating, which will last 5+ years. So whatever detailing service you want to do, go to irdetailing.com, and when you use the contact form through there, just make sure to mention that you're a Ride the Lightning listener, and any work that you book in, you'll have the Ride the Lightning listener discount courteously extended to you. Finally, the Patreon I mentioned at the top, so I'll just make this quick. Patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. If you listen to the podcast regularly, you get a lot out of it. You find it informative. Hopefully you even find it fun as well. And you see it in your heart to show me a little bit of support. The way to do that is through patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. The support tiers start at just $5 a month. There are also annual pledge options if you just want to pledge once for an entire year of support. If you do the annual pledge, I give you a 10% discount on that annual pledge as my way of saying thank you for committing that long-term support. No matter which support tier you do, you'll get early access to each week's podcast, ad-free episodes, and if you're at the $10 tier or higher, you'll get all of those past, present, and future lightning round mini episodes that I do every single week exclusively on Patreon. So again, check it out if you get a chance, patreon.com/Tesla Podcast. Most of you have a regular way that you get this podcast, but if you're just looking it up every week, there's an easier way, and that is to use your favorite podcast service, whether that's Apple Podcasts or TuneIn or Spotify or YouTube Podcasts, and just click the follow button. Well, you got to search for me, so find me. So just search Ride the Lightning Tesla. I should be pull up right away on the search, and then click the follow button. It doesn't cost anything, and all that means is whenever there's a new episode, you will get a push notification that says, hey, new Ride the Lightning episode available, and you can just tap that and either listen to it right away or add it to your list of things in the queue to listen to. Finally, I am on 2 social media platforms, X and Instagram. I have the same username on both, and that username is DMC_Ryan. You can email me anytime about Tesla-related things, and that email address is teslapodcast@gmail.com. Lastly, I want to say hello and thank you to the top-tier Patreon backers, these extra generous folks. I'm very, very grateful for their support. Starting with, how about the grandfathered-in plaid level folks this week? We'll start there. Big thanks to George Cassiopo, Logan Willis, Peter Chalet, Eric Randolph, Dory and Steve Guberman, the Tesla Owners Club of Taiwan, Ron Lee, Charlie Gillespie, Jeff Angwin, Chase Cabanillas, the Lydia family, Aaron Altschul, Jared Brown, Jerome Strack, Jamie Dalton, Mike and Barbara from Louisville, Matt Nixon, the Tesla Owners Club of Wisconsin, Ish, not Elon Musk in quotes, Peter, and the Bear Boys of Colorado. Next up, the maximum plaid tier. Huge thanks to Jonathan Wales, Cameron Clark, Daniel Grummer, Seth Capello, Nick and Tony, the Galpin family, Ryan from New York City, Darren Nickel, Kaz Barnes, Brett Libano, Patrick Wisniewski, Gil Cabrera, Todd Badger, Joe Edgel, Kevin Yank, the Tesla Owners Club of San Joaquin Valley, Will Stedman, Justin Perez, Jeremy Harris, Chris Beach, Tom Mills, Corey O'Donnell, Aaron, John Cody, Joel Sapp, Paul Casarino, Richard Corley, Chris Osborne, KB, Adam Lavoie, Jason Chalukas, Travis Krenzel, Bruce Otterstein, Tom Behan, Josh Pennington, John from Cream Ridge, New Jersey, Dustin Hart, Derek Finley, Charles Clement, Adam Christie, Damon Klein, Jeff Brown, Jerry Slinger, Clayton Goodfellow, Michael Mizrahi, Kenneth Corbett, and Brian Bertoglio. Finally, an extra big thanks to the Roadster in Space tier backers: Pete White, Lyle Austin, Steve Radspinner, Fernando Cordero, Lawton from Chicago, Sean Neidig, Neil Weaver, Jackson Wallace, Rolf and Jennifer Evers, Howard Anthony Smith, Victoria Iacovetto, Tesla Hitchhiker 42, Carol Weston, Robert from near Philly, American Home Contractors, who I actually got to meet up. They were in town today. Good to meet them face to face. GetAmber.com, Doug Carey, Rav, Michael Gallo, and Tony Figueroa. That will do it for a very long episode 495 here, so I'm not going to linger anymore at the end. Instead, I will wish you happy electric motoring, my friends. Stay tuned for the earnings call, highlights, recap, and analysis coming up next week. I'm looking forward to it. I'll see you then.
Elon Musk, people don't like Elon Musk. The guy founded PayPal and Tesla, and people are like, yeah, but he's a troll and a bad dad. I'm like, so was mine. He did nothing to fight climate change. Also, have you been in a Tesla? Have you been in a Tesla? My buddy let me drive his Tesla. I laughed out loud at how fast it went. Been clinically depressed my entire life, on dozens of medications, in a Tesla for 13 seconds, cured forever.
I mean, I think a Tesla is the most fun thing you could possibly buy ever. That's what it's meant to be. Our goal is to make it's not exactly a car. It's actually a thing to maximize enjoyment. It's maximum fun.